Welcome everybody to ATOMIstudio. Today, Friday the 11th, we have a special honor from the United States of America. We have Mike Martin here with us today. Welcome, Mike Martin.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you, definitely. This will be one of those shows that we will do in English and the translations will follow. And if you have questions or comments, feel free to write them in either one of the languages. So I'll make sure to translate in English if you write in Finnish. And yeah, today's topic is 3 layers of entrapment. And I've just recently came across Mike Martin's work while I was watching the Souls in Simulations and all those other channels that I follow, including Tony Sawyer's and all those. And you were a guest in one of those shows, and I was starting to listen like, what is this guy talking about? A soul being part of the entrapment system, keeping us in the reincarnation cycle here on this reality we call Earth. And the more I listened to your channel, the more it started to make sense that soul has to be a part of the system. And would you kindly, Mike, bring the audience on top of what I'm talking about here? What is the soul and what is this 3 layers of entrapment?
Okay, I'll start there. Basically, we are the us of ourselves is conscious energy. That's all we are. We're not the body, we're not the spirit, we're not the soul. So what happens is at some point we were born into this physical body on this physical plane. And we're also connected with the spirit body on the astral plane. And we're also connected to a soul, which resides on the mental plane. Now, when I say this, they're all in the same place. We're all in the same place, but there are different layers. So, like for instance, I'm going to try to put this into physical terms so people might understand it a little bit. Say you lived in United States and say you lived in Africa. And for instance, if you had like the existence of maybe like a portal, that they could be right next door to each other or right in the same place at the same time. It's just a different frequency. And that's what these other levels are. So the physical level is one frequency, then the astral level is another frequency on top of it, and then the mental planes is another frequency on top of that. So they're all in the same space at the same time, but they reside in different frequency levels. So the physical body and the spirit body are connected by a cord, and then also with the soul is connected by a cord. So we're entrapped within either one of these 3 bodies at a time. So if I'm on the physical level and I'm functioning on the physical level, then my consciousness resides in the physical body. Now, if I have an astral projection, a conscious astral projection, my consciousness travels through that cord into the spirit body. And at that point, I can manipulate and walk around in the spirit body on the astral plane, but my physical body is not active because wherever the conscious energy resides is what is activated, is what you can, whatever body that you can move at the time. If I move into the soul, then I'm on the mental planes, and the other 2 bodies are inactive. So whichever body your conscious energy resides in is the one that you can that you're active within, and you are conscious within. And that's why I say they're all part of the same trap, 3-body system. And also what we call the subconsciousness oversees all of that. The subconsciousness resides in each one of us, and it also resides above all of us. So it monitors each one of us from within and from without. And it kind of, I would say it's the warden of what I call the prison system. I call Earth the physical prison, and then the astral, which is the prison yard. So people think that I got an out-of-body experience and I got to go in the astral, so I've escaped. No, you've just made it to the prison yard. There's still being secured and guarded there. You're not going to move much farther. So that's where that comes from. But I can start at the beginning and how kind of I come to this point. So
Please do.
as a child, I was having experiences that I couldn't explain. A lot of them had to do with either dreams or a dreamlike state, which I later discovered was the astral. It was all uncontrolled. I didn't have any control over it. I didn't have any knowledge of it. This was back in the 1970s, and it wasn't anything that anybody talked about. So kind of fast forward to where I was in my 20s, and I discovered through a book about out-of-body experiences, and I was completely intrigued. I didn't realize anything that I had experienced in the past because I just kind of forgotten about it. So I decided I wanted to pursue that out-of-body experiences. And so I read the book by Robert Monroe called Journeys Out of the Body. And I took some information from there, and I also read a couple other books. And I decided there was a couple different techniques I was going to try in order to become successful. And the technique I ended up settling on was using lucid dreaming as a gateway into the astral, which basically is you have to realize you're dreaming within your dream. And once you become consciously lucid within that dream, you've realized it. And then you can tell yourself that you want to have an out-of-body experience and you're supposed to be whisked into the astral. That was the whole premise. So what I started doing every day is questioning myself. I would question myself maybe, I don't know, between 10 and 50 times a day. I would stop and I would ask myself, I would look at a solid object and say, am I dreaming? And then I would turn away and I would look back at the object. And if it had not changed, then I would know that I was not dreaming, because in the dream state, if you turn away from something and look back at it, it will have changed because everything moves at a much faster rate. So I began doing that every day, religiously. And over about probably 11 months of doing this, I came to a portion of in a dream that I realized wasn't normal. So I realized and I awakened within the dream, and I told myself I wanted to have an out-of-body experience. And I was whisked out of the dream into the astral on the side of my house. Now, at that point, I knew that I was in bed. My body was in bed. I could feel it. I knew it was there, and I knew I was outside at the same time. So I was conscious within my spirit body. So I was having a controlled out-of-body experience. What happened was my conscious energy went through that cord into the spirit body, and I was on the side of my house. So I could no longer move my physical body until I returned to the physical body. So I was making notes of what experience this experience was like, how far I could see. It was almost a 360-degree peripheral view. I could feel that it was cold outside, but yet I wasn't cold. I could feel the air move through me. Everything looked the same in that state where I was as it did if I was there physically. I was probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 feet above the ground, hovering over, looking out towards the street, and everything looked the same as if I would have been out there physically. So it's a layer above the physical, but it's still there will be inconsistencies and differences, but at that point, it all looked the same. It didn't feel the same, but it looked the same. So I made my notes, my mental notes, thought of everything I could in the short period of time that I was there. And then I was whisked back into my body. I opened my eyes and I fully wrote down my experience at that time. And now that I've been successful, I knew that it was indeed a real experience. And after doing a lot of thinking about that experience, that's when I realized that's what I was having as a kid, but I didn't have control of it. So I kept going through the process of trying to become lucid of my dream in my dreams. And it took a couple months before I was successful for the second time. But instead of me having the time to tell myself I want to have an out-of-body experience, I was back in bed in the physical with my eyes closed, laying on my side out of the dream. And there was an image that was an oval image. It was it was a huge oval image. It took almost my whole peripheral vision, and around it was a border, like a picture border, and it had some writing in it that I didn't recognize. It wasn't anything foreign that I've ever seen. It was a mixture of almost different types of art in the form of writing. And so I was just sitting there and with my eyes closed and just taking in the information, trying to figure out what it was, because I knew it was live. It was buildings by water, and the water was moving, so I knew it was a live view. It was almost as if somebody had a camera there, and I was looking at a screen that was in an oval shape, and uh, it didn't look like any buildings that I've seen before. So I was trying to understand what that was, what the writing was. I had a lot of things to try to figure out in a short 30-second or 45-second period of time before it dissipated. And then I opened my eyes. I was fully awake. And what I later discovered was this was the hypnagogic state, which the hypnagogic state is somewhere between the dream state and the waking state. So at some point, I'm in that state, fully awake, and I'm having these experiences. So after that, I wrote everything down in my dream journal that I've been keeping for a long time. And then every time I would become lucid within a dream, I would be pulled out and also connected to these what I called viewings. At first, I didn't know what they were, and then I later discovered they were portals. And eventually, that oval image turned into my full peripheral vision. There was no more shape; it was just my full peripheral vision. Was able to see different locations that obviously weren't Earth. Some looked similar to Earth. Others were experiences where I would just see like somebody having papers on an overhead projector in a different language, and the papers would move over the overhead projector faster than I could even read them, even if they were in a language that I spoke. So information, different experiences. I would see people in different places, maybe different timelines. And then I started having the experience that I was seeing through the eyes of other people or beings in different locations that took me some time to acclimate, to try to figure out what was occurring, because it's hard to try to put into words what you're experiencing and try to figure it out. So that's been happening since the early 1990s, and that's when it first began. And then I was basically living my life like a normal person, trying to figure out, because I had no answers and no pathway to get answers for myself. So I finally figured out that the only way I was going to get answers was going to be figuring it all out myself, which has taken many decades to try to come to a conclusion. So that's kind of how I began. And we can kind of go on if you've got any questions related to that.
Well, the first question that here is I promise to do the translations. Is astral projection sort of like quantiphysical, like mixing in between in the space-time coordination?
I would say that the astral field or levels are just a layer on top. So if you could, I would say it would almost be like if you could somehow get in between one moment and the next in the physical and ride those moments in between and still be in the same space, that's what I would um, compare it to. Or what I can say too is in the astral, when you're there, you're also in the same space as you are here now. And it's hard for people to understand unless you've been in the situation before. But like I said, it's like radio frequencies. You can have a radio and you have all these FM channels all through the radio. They're all in the same space. You just have to tune in to each station. They're all right there. They're all the radio stations are here right now. You just have to be able to tune into each one of those stations. And so that's the way that I like to refer to it as, because that makes the most sense, because you're in the same space in the same time. Well, time doesn't really exist there, but you're in the same space, you occupy the same space. And it's hard for people to understand that, but you're in the same space as you are now. It's just at a different frequency.
I wrote a comment to one of your posts, one of your videos about glimpse state, that I've had personal experiences being on this level. I wrote to you saying that I was in a boat, in a motorboat with my husband, and he was driving the boat, and I was just sitting there. And all of a sudden, I realized, of course, that I was still here in this present, in this realm, just sitting on a boat. But simultaneously, I was navigating a spaceship.
Right. Right. And that's what I'm talking about, because when you connected the glimpse state, just like you did, we all do it, we just don't realize it. You are residing in several places simultaneously, whether you know it or not. Alternate realities. And when I discovered the portals and I discovered how to utilize them and I discovered the glimpse state, then I could, on my own, transfer. So I'm here. I'm like an out-of-body experience. I realize where I'm at, where my physical body is. But in the glimpse state, I don't lose the ability to move. I don't lose that because I'm not switching bodies. I'm basically transferring my consciousness, or it's moving to another space, but I'm still here. So I can be in this space and in an alternate reality experience like you were, or in another dimension at the same time. So you know where you're at in both spaces at the same time, yet you're not going to be having a conversation in the physical while you're doing that, because your conscious energy is focused in that situation. If you don't stay focused on it, then you'll revert back to either the daydream state or back into the physical. So what you were doing is you were simultaneously in two places at one time, which is not uncommon for us because we're conscious energy. We're not just physical. We're activating and animating a physical body, and we're also somewhere else at the same time. So until you've been out of the physical, it's hard to understand. Experience is the only way you're going to fully understand it. But now that you've experienced it in that situation, you realize that there is a duality. You can be in two places simultaneously and be doing what you're doing.
Exactly. Exactly. But your travels, they don't only go to the astral. You go sort of like beyond.
I rarely, after the first couple times, I rarely go. I don't spend time on the astral because I know there's a lot of manipulation and other things. I'm not saying it's not everywhere else, but what I'm saying is the astral is where people go, and that's where the barrage of manipulation centers itself. So I go beyond that into the alternate realities and the other dimensions. Now, it wasn't my original purpose to do that, but I discovered that, so that's where I go.
We have here some comments about disagreeing that our soul or our consciousness wouldn't be locked here, wouldn't be in prison here, but we would be here to learn, to experience, to become the absolute knowing. And it says here that the soul is always free. Soul is always free, never mind on which frequency it is. So you are used to people not agreeing with you.
Oh yeah. I used to be on the same mindset because back in the 80s, I was all fully into the metaphysical belief system. We were all one, this sort of thing. It's a school and everything. But this is where I had to come to the conclusion that was completely false. Now, the majority of the people believe in this. And if you look at the way things work out, the majority of the people usually believe is a lie. Most of the foundational beliefs that we've been taught and programmed with our whole lives are a lie. They're a convenient lie. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens is if we were here to learn, okay, fine. We'll take that premise. Well, if we're here to learn, then how many times do you need to learn how to die or watch people have cancer, watch people suffer? How many wars do you need? what happens is that wears out really quickly. That whole premise, that whole idea wears out really quickly. Why? If I'm responsible, like with karma, if I'm responsible for something I did 15,000 years ago, 100 million lifetimes ago, and how am I going to learn from it if I don't remember what I did and I'm suffering for something that I did before? That's all completely baloney. It's not realistic. What you have to do is look at how things are working, the inner workings of what's happening. What I discovered is over hundreds and hundreds of experiences is the idea that we're here. We're here beings of light surrounded by a darkness. That darkness absorbs our energy. And if basically we are cattle for other beings, we're producing for them. And they're the predators, we're the prey. And the easiest way you can get your prey to fall in line is to manipulate them, to lie to them, give them a good story, give them faith, give them hope. But there's no hope for you to actually get out of here by believing into the system. So buy into all that we're selling. We create wars for your frustration, your depression, your release of energy. And the reason why that I really discovered this whole energy portion for myself was I was being manipulated in my dreams since I was a child. I mean, to the point where these were fearful dreams, highly fearful, the point where I was being, all my limbs would go numb. I couldn't scream. I couldn't get away. And it was just constant barrage of terror. Now, as a kid, I wasn't creating this. I didn't know any better. I just wanted to go outside and play and have fun with my friends. And the next thing you know, I come to bed and I'm freaking being terrorized. So what happened, and it started when I was adult again. But this time I could investigate it. This time I could face it. This time I could figure out why it was happening. And it's happening for the release of the energy, for the release of my energy. And what they were doing is they were creating scenarios for me to react to. And that's what causes us to release energy. Our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions are all part of the system. We're being led down paths that create energy for them. This is what it's all about. Very simple. And all these stories and all these religious ideas and things that we've been fed are there to give us hope. Be good. Don't fight back. Don't do this. Don't like this. Don't like that. So what they're doing is they're keeping us in the cage. And eventually, if a prisoner is good enough, then they can take the cage away and the prisoner won't leave. And that's the state that we're in right now. We're all being manipulated worldwide by our leaders, what we call our leaders, to fulfill their agenda, to sit back and watch everything being taken away from us, watch our children being taken away from us, and everything that we value in our and everything that we believe in taken away from us. They're stripping everything away, our faith, everything, so that they can put us in a position to where we're in constant depression and anger, anguish, and everything else. We're all being played. And my idea behind that is I can sit and complain about all the problems we have in this world, or I can come up with a solution. And I prefer the solution. And that's what I came up with last year. And I posted it on my channel, because if you're going to fight back, you have to start at the top. Because if you complain and think you're going to change the political positions with all this money coming in and everything, you're never going to change anything at the bottom. You have to go to the top. You have to make the change at the top and let it filter down. And that's the only way we're going to make change. And this is not a physical fight. This is a spiritual fight, what we would call spiritual. And the only way to win is to begin on the non-physical.
Exactly. I want to use some of these comments we have here. Tula here writes that in the meditation, soul shows me a lot of like astral travels. Yes, it does, right? Because soul is part of the trap. Soul is part of the thing we hear. So of course, soul does that. And there's another one.
Well, I want to say this. I want
Mhm.
to say this. The soul itself is on the mental planes, which is not in the astral. The spirit body is on the astral. Okay.
Yeah.
those are containers. Okay. We have to look at it because when people say it's a soul trap, you are not the soul, you are not the spirit, you are not the body. Those are merely containers. Because if you take your conscious energy out of the body, you're dead. The body can't move. If your conscious energy doesn't reside in the spirit, it's dead. If it doesn't reside in the soul, it can't move. None of those have intelligence. You are the intelligence. You're not the car. You're the driver. You are the driver. Those are all vehicles. That's all they are. Don't see them as part of you because they're not. They're only animated when you reside within them. And you have to move in between each one of them in order to animate them.
Brilliant. Thank you. There is constant this word is so difficult. Consciousness in all organic, also in a stone.
Well, I would say there's consciousness in pretty much everything. I mean, obviously animals, I'm sure plants do in some level because they're all alive at some point. I haven't spent a lot of time studying that because I know our situation right now, and that to me was my focal point. I wanted to make sure that I try to come up with a solution for our problem, our main problem, and then it will filter down and affect everything as we go. Because if you have a system that's containing us, it's also containing the rest of life. I mean, who knows what kind of a cycle that animals and plants and everything go through. They're all going through the same suffrage cycle as we do, just on a different level. So if we work together but individually on the solution, then we're going to help everything around us. And that's the only way for us to move forward. That's in my opinion.
Exactly. Then, of course, a very important question: who are they? Who
Good
are
question.
these?
Good
Who are
question.
these?
Let me give you some insight on there because I didn't have an answer for that. But I've been around them so much in the past. It's like, okay, let me give it to you this way. When you're connected within a portal, there's, I would say, it's simplify it. There's a window between you and the other location unless you're traveling through it. Okay. But as you're seeing that other side, they're seeing your side too. And there's also an energy transference between both sides. I can't explain what it is, but I know something about over there, and then they'll know something about me. So it's a connection. It's not just a I see you and you see me. It's a connection between two sides that I can't explain the transfer of energy. Okay, so when I'm in the midst of these non-physical beings in the non-physical, which I've been around a lot, you tend to get a good idea of how they are only because, and this is not a good experience in my opinion. When you're near them like that, there's a transfer of energy between you two, and that transfer of energy is not always a preferable one. In the way that I picked up traits from them, and I'm sure they did the same from me. But the traits that I felt from them was not what I liked. I could feel that there was a heaviness. It didn't harm me, but it was something that I picked up, and I utilized it to my advantage to understand to better understand them, because I was able to think like them, and there was things that I was thinking that I didn't like, and it took me some time to get over it. But I used that information and that energy in order for me to better describe what was going on. They are beings that collect energy. They live off of that energy. They treat us like cattle, and they look at us as a predator and prey situation. They don't hate us, and it's like we look at cattle or our food source. That's how they look at us. It's a pretty simple process. They don't have the love and hate feeling and that sort of thing, but they do manipulate us to feel and have emotions so that they can bank off of that energy. So what they're doing is just basically using us, no more than we would look at a food source for ourselves. So basically, we always thought we were the predators on the planet, but we're not. We're the prey. So in my solution, I've switched the roles of predator prey, and now I'm hunting them. I found a way to hunt them. And that's what I'm promoting for people to do. It may seem to be a ridiculous idea, but that's the only way that we're going to get out of the situation. You have to look at it as, would you blame a coyote or a wolf for killing a rabbit and eating it as food? No, you wouldn't. What happened is, if the rabbit bit the coyote, would you say that the rabbit's now bad? So you can't look at things in our normal physical good and bad. You have to look at things as the way they are. And we have a hard time with that because we've been programmed through our media that this is how we need to think. You need to think in this box. Don't look outside the box. There's nothing out there. You need to be within that box, and you just stay in there. So we need to look at our foundational beliefs and really weigh them and decide what works for us and what doesn't, because the reality of the situation is, are you believing it because somebody told you or because your experience? Base your beliefs on your experiences, not on somebody else's information.
You mentioned many times in your videos that you sort of view they as neutral. They have an agenda. They look at us as cattle, as food source, but it's just part of the food chain.
Right. What there is there's the system, them.
Yeah.
Okay. They have a system. They use technology. Okay? It's far beyond what we'd understand as technology, because it's energy technology. Okay. So what they've done is they've got a system set up, and then they have people on Earth who I would say worship them as either demons or whatever. Because what I tell people is, whether you see a demon or an angel, it's the same entity. They can just portray themselves in whatever fashion that you desire. Okay. So we have different religious sects or different types of religious or groups here on Earth that pray and worship to these non-physical beings. And what they do is they give them energy. They get some type of a payment from them so that they fulfill their needs. And that's what happens is, when these people, politicians and that sort of thing, they are in these groups, then they will follow an agenda in order to create havoc on all the people in order to meet the needs of who they're worshiping. It's always been like, there's always been worshiping of gods. And these would probably be considered gods to some people. They're non-physical beings. And they know how to manipulate, and they're psychologically dominant, so they can make people do whatever they want. And there's so many things that we could get into, but it goes back to how many children we have missing all the time, and all these different things. There's so much going on. I try not to get into the physical attributes of a lot of this stuff, because I focus more on the non-physical, because that's where my explorations and my experience lies. There's enough people covering all the media aspects of it and all of the manipulation that it's on the physical level. I try to go beyond the physical.
That's good. And you have said many times that because of the occasion books, they know more about us than we do ourselves.
Well, if you're connected with somebody through a technological system, which they're going to read your thoughts, they can read, they know your emotions and feelings. There's nothing that you know that they don't know, because they're connected to you. The subconsciousness is within you. I mean, they've got a full system on us, so they know all of our thoughts and that sort of thing. So, and also, I don't believe this is the first or the 100th or the 500th time that they've brought down societies. What they do is they create a society that will flourish. But in the beginning of that society, they put all of these different flaws in there so that the society will get to a certain point where everybody's all doing well, and then eventually it'll just drop and it'll fail. It's all built into the system. They've been doing this for so long, they know how to psychologically adopt and adapt to get us to succeed and fail, succeed and fail. It's just a constant cycle, just like the recycling, reincarnation system. That's what they're doing. It causes us, and then obviously wars and famine and all these different things are all thrown in the mix. But they manipulate us like an ant farm. They know how, okay, do this, you get to a certain point, then it's going to drop down, and then we start all over again. And then it's just, that's what it's all about. It's never going to end. We're in a system that's going to be, we're going to be producing for eternity unless we do something about it. This recycling system, reincarnation system, is just what we know about, but it's far more complex than that.
I believe, and so many people still believe that if they go to the astral, that's it. They're like solved all the mysteries. And
and it sells. It sells. When I first got into the astral, I started reading some books and stuff like that, and then I knew a lot of it was just untrue. It was to sell books, and that's what's happening. People get into something, and then they want to make some money off it, or create something, and then they're going to create this grandiose production to make everybody want to go there, and then they're going to sell their way to do it, and this and that, and it's just and then there's also the ones that are there to manipulate people in the first place. So you've got all this information, you've got a trillion different pathways that you can go on, and most of them are there with a dead end, just to get you to waste your time and energy, because you're not meant to find the truth. The truth is hidden below thousands of layers of lies. That's where the truth resides, and the only way you're going to find the truth is to go for it by yourself. And just going on the astral one time, or having one NDE or a couple of NDEs, and all about it, that's not true. You're only going to see the production they present to you. Even when I go on there, there's a production. I have to wade through all of the illusion to get to the reality of it. And that's what took many, many years. I had to come to the conclusion. I had to sit down with all my documentation, and I had to harshly look at myself and my experiences and tear them apart bit by bit. It took me a number of years. And it was a very uncomfortable situation, but that's the only way that you're going to be able to tear down your foundational misunderstandings and get to the point of truth. And that's what you have to do. And that's the only way you can get to it.
Exactly. I did some Reiki courses myself, and I realized I was pretty good at it, actually. And I'm clairvoyant, or was clairvoyant, and all that. But then all of a sudden, I started questioning that, how do I know? How could I not be fooled? Like, you get what I mean? Because I'm so limited as a human being. I'm so limited that I could be fooled. I see a lot of things like from the astral or wherever I was looking at this, but there's no way to tell that whatever came through me would be like pure or beneficial or with good intentions, or we are so easily fooled because we don't
Right.
see everything.
I think the main reason why we are so easily fooled is once we leave the physical, it's almost like you're so wow, ooh, ah, that you're so enamored with all this that you're so you just can't believe it. So you think everything's got to be good because you've always heard the spirit world. Oh, it's great, the angels and all this kind of stuff, and you can trust everybody. When I first got on there, I was very naive. I thought, okay, they said this. All right, okay, I'll write it down.
Yeah, exactly.
But you get to a point where you think, okay, well, why would I trust this person any more than I would trust somebody if I just went to a big city and somebody on the street told me that? How would I know that they're any more trusting than the other person? Then I came to the conclusion is every being everywhere has their own agenda, and there's no way that you're ever going to know it. So don't trust anybody and question everything. Questioning everything is the only way, because you don't know. You don't know what that being is thinking. You don't know their situation. They could look trusting, they could act trusting, they could have a very trusting face or whatever. But what happens is when you go into the non-physical, those non-physical beings are going to portray something, an image to you that makes you feel comfortable. And they're going to say to you what makes you feel comfortable. They understand you because they can read you on different levels that you can never, you don't know who you're dealing with. First of all, you see something, but you don't know that's who they are.
Mhm.
So it's almost like if you invite an alien to your home and you're a Hollywood producer and the alien comes to this $1 million man or $10 million mansion with all these cars and stuff, and they're like, wow, everybody who lives on Earth, they have all this money and they do all this stuff because I went and talked to this guy and he told me everything. And yeah, and he goes back and tells everybody, if you go there, everybody's got these huge houses and everything with acreage, and so they're going to believe whatever you tell them. And that's what happens with us. And they tell you what you want to hear. They know your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. So they're going to play on your emotions and your feelings. So when people go with, have NDEs or go on the astral and they meet them, they're going to see what they want to see and they're going to hear what they want to hear. And that way they can feed them information that will filter down into other people. So if you want to play people, then you're going to have to give them something that they want to hear. And then and it's like I said, every being everywhere has their own agenda. You have no idea what it is. And the astral is a very misguiding place because
Absolutely.
they don't want you to learn. They're never going to give you plans to free energy or how to find 460,000 missing children just in the US every year. They're not going to tell you stuff like that. They're not going to have the psychics finding all these lost kids. That's not going to happen. If they were actually good and spiritual, then why wouldn't we have a better world here? I understand we are in charge of a lot of our own issues, but there are a lot of things that we personally aren't in charge of that could be helped, and we're not getting anything. We have gotten nothing.
Exactly. One thing I've been wondering lately is dreaming, sleeping, because I love to sleep. I'm at my best behavior when I've had a good night's sleep. And lately, I've been questioning that a lot because you're not the only one saying that we get manipulated during night. And the other night, maybe like 3 months ago, I woke up to the feeling that somebody was forcing me to eat like a very big potato that was completely black. I woke up to that feeling, and it was so real. It was I sleep with a little scotch on my mouth because it helps me breathing, and I had to remove that scotch, that adhesive tape, in order to be able to swallow that huge black potato. And that was manipulation. Something
What
happened.
I kept a dream log for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And I used to go through it all the time to try to find out. And I'm just making a video on this specific subject right now. When you're in a dream, you're in an illusionary, I would say a semi-drug-like illusionary state. Okay. You're going to agree to things that you would normally not agree to, like eating a black potato, or maybe allowing somebody to walk through your house that you have not liked ever. You know, what they're doing is they're showing you that they can manipulate you while you're attentive, while you're semi-attentive, because you're not fully conscious. If you were lucid, it wouldn't happen. So there's a lot of things in dreams where they program you, manipulate you using different, and people say, oh, that's your subconscious and blah, blah, blah. Well, the subconscious is already what I call the enemy from within. But what they're doing is they're bit by bit, bite by bite, creating manipulative practices within you so that you will question it afterwards. You won't question it during. You'll allow things to happen that in a dream that you would never allow to happen in regular life. And what I've spent a lot of time in is remaining lucid more in a state before the dream and after the dream, or even maybe during the dream, to try to cut out a lot of that. I can still sleep, but I don't have that manipulative dream state experiences. And I've actually wake myself up several times in the middle of the night, a lot of times if I'm dreaming, so that I can halt it and move past that. And what I do is I talked about the solution. I practice that in the middle of the night a lot of times. If I'm getting these manipulative dreams, I'll practice my solution right before it or right after it or within those times. And I also utilize the portal glimpse type state at that time too. But there is so much garbage that we are fed, because I've got books and books of what things are supposed to mean and everything else, and I've gone through my own experiences, and yeah, it's trash. It's just basically trash. What I say is the dream state and the daydream state are so similar, but what I do is dream state I don't usually spend a lot of time with, but the daydream state I can manipulate into the glimpse state. So I use that a lot. So I don't really spend time daydreaming. I utilize that state to throw me into the hypnagogic state so that I can utilize my travels. So yeah, when people say 8 hours of sleep a night, you got to think about that. You're like, why? That's at least a third of my life is being spent with the subconsciousness basically into control. So I'm not up for that. So I spend less time sleeping than I normally have, but I actually spend more time sleeping than dreaming. I'm trying to cut out a lot of that dream state, or at least control it within that time. And if I can control it, there's a lot of blowback during the dreams. You'll if you can start to really work against them in your dreams, then you'll see some effects of it, but you'll get past it. But yeah, there's manipulation everywhere, and people just don't realize it. But when you start to realize it, then you're like, your blinders are off. Now your peripheral vision starts to expand, and you can see it more and more. Once you become aware of how you're being manipulated, you could catch it. Like a long time ago, I took a class on a lot of the images that advertising used to use. Like there would be a picture of a lady inside of a glass of ice and sort of thing. And once you realize that image was there, or when you're watching a movie and a Pepsi can pops up, real quick, and your subconscious picks it up, but you don't consciously see it. That advertised subliminal messaging. Once you realize those messages are there, they don't affect you anymore. And it's the same thing with the dream state. Once you start to realize the dream state and the manipulation that goes on in your life, you can pick it up. Once you become consciously aware of it, then it no longer affects you at that level.
Okay, I have some questions about this. I've had some dreams that have come true, like like really happened exactly as told in the dream? Was that manipulation? What was it?
Well, we all run into, and like you experienced your alternate reality when you're driving the spaceship. I think that's what it was in the
Uh,
boat.
yeah, that was
Okay.
during daytime.
Okay, so here you are, you're having that experience, you're having this experience. Also, what I say is time doesn't exist. Once you're away from time, then you understand, but you don't understand how it exists when you're back.
Ah, now I see.
What
Yeah.
happens is a lot of times that timeline is still here. But when you're able to change state, you can view timelines on a different level. So when you're in when your mind is in the non-physical, you can view things that we would say, oh, it hasn't happened yet, but it really has, because everything happens simultaneously. There is no here to there, A to B. It's all now. So when you realize things happen simultaneously, then then you'll have things of that nature. So what you did is you saw something non-physically that hasn't happened in your world yet, but it has occurred. So what you're doing is you're seeing things as they really are, but you're not comprehending it because it's out of your timeline. Because when you come back to the physical, you don't understand it. You're like, okay, well, I saw it happen. Now it happens. Well, it already has happened, but you just don't understand that.
Exactly. Because space-time doesn't exist. Yeah.
Right.
Get it.
Right.
Thank you. That was very clarifying. Other question. I was about 4 years old. I was in doctor's room with my mother, and I was very afraid. I don't remember, was it some sort of thing that this doctor was doing to me, but I was very afraid. And I just saw myself from a couple of feet away, 2 meters away. And I saw myself sitting in a chair, and this doctor, maybe it was an injection or something, taking out something from my body. I don't remember, but I remember watching this from the outside. Who was there? Who was watching me, my physical body?
Well, now, were you in your physical body at the time? Were you actively in your physical body?
No, my mother told me later that you were so nice, you were so still, you didn't move a muscle, you just let the doctor do what he had to do.
Well, see, the reason why I ask is because if you were to somehow project it out of your physical body, then you would be motionless. So there's a couple different things that could have happened. You could have projected and been outside, like in your spirit body, and looking in for that moment. And when what you say could have been this long in a timeline could be longer, but you can't tell when you're out of it. So it could be that could have happened, or you projected yourself somehow. I would say the easiest description would be you projected yourself out for that moment. And as kids, we can do things like that because we don't have that. We don't have a lot of the programming, and we don't have a lot of the issues that we have as adults. That we don't have a lot of the limitations. So as kids, we can do, like I was having the out of body experiences, and I didn't even know what they were. It was just happening. Same thing would happen to you, and it would only be for a moment. So if you were motionless and not talking, whatever, that's probably what happened. It's a very simple, a very simple explanation for something, because you weren't talking, you weren't moving around, so that's the easiest solution for it.
Yeah. One more question about the dreams. I often have same dreams, or I'm a same person in another reality. It's sort of like I have a nighttime life. Is that sort of like a portal experience, or just what is that, in your opinion?
Well, it could not be a dream. It could be having the alternate reality experiences, because it's the same thing that you ran into with that when you were in the boat. Two things at one time. And what I tell people is, I've had a lot of alternate reality experiences, and two have never been the same over years. So I believe we're in many places simultaneously. And when somebody asks me how many alternate realities and different dimensions you think there are, I would say there is no number. They're unlimited. I have no way of knowing, because I've never experienced the same one twice ever. And so we somehow are connected with these other beings, and these other people, and these other realities. And you could be men, women, or different species, or whatever they are. You're experiencing them, and it's happening all at the same time. So when you go there, you only get this little tiny piece. You'll get like 2 puzzle pieces out of a 1,000-piece puzzle, and you're supposed to try to understand how that fits into the mix. So that's where you're at. You're getting these small pieces, and if you're living this other life, most likely it's an alternate reality that you reside in, and you're getting that connection. Now, what I would say is, yeah, it's utilizing a portal, because when I use the dream state, the glimpse state and stuff, yeah, it's a portal. And that's how we make those connections. Because if you want to bring 2 places to the same space, you have to have a way to connect between them. And that's what we use portals for.
Could you elaborate even more on the portals?
A
Because they
portal,
sort of like appeared to you so many years ago, and then you started creating them, if I understood you correctly.
so when I first started, I called them viewings, because I didn't know what they were. Then I came to the conclusion, I was actually told in one of my experiences, these are portals. But they also told me that what you can see on our side, we can see that much on your side too. So, and I had an idea that was true, but without having somebody on the other side tell me that, I couldn't verify it. So a portal can be a connection between 2 or more places or spaces simultaneously, whether it's alternate realities, different dimensions, astral, whatever. Okay. You can also utilize a portal to travel from one side to the other, wherever and then there's also a couple other things that you can use a portal for. But we naturally use them to travel back and forth between these. Our conscious energy, our lucid energy does that. Now, what happens is, so there's a veil in between the physical and the non-physical. And this basically, when we cross the veil, anything that we bring, any knowledge that we bring back to on the physical side, it gets filtered out. So that's why we're not aware of it. But fortunately, you've been able to get past the filter at times. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I'd done it so many hundreds and hundreds of times that I just kept doing it until I finally just was able to do it. I figure once you penetrate a wall enough times, maybe you can get through it a lot easier, or make a doorway or whatever. I was able to do it. So, and it takes a large amount of energy in order to first of all keep the portal open over time. So if you had that experience on that boat, and if for some reason you remembered how to do it, or you knew how to do it, if you tried it the next day, it wouldn't last very long, because it absorbs the portal absorbs energy from you just to keep it open. And then also the amount of conscious energy it required sometimes in those scenarios is large, just to keep your focus on what's going on. Otherwise, it'll get absorbed by the dream state around there, or the daydream state around there. So a portal is a connection between 2 or more locations. And at first, I was not opening them for a couple of decades. I didn't open them until I figured out at one point I would have the experience, but there was nothing there. It was blank. So I figured it was my opportunity to try to figure out if I can open the portal for myself. So I started using visualization techniques that I had felt during those openings, and then I was able to recreate that. And once I was able to recreate that, then I just kept doing it on my own. I didn't need the portals to open automatically for me. I could recreate that on my own. But I had to do it within a certain time frame. I couldn't do like a bunch in a week, because otherwise I didn't have the energy. I'd have to build it up and then to do it over and over again.
Exactly. It's a corridor, sort of doors.
Yeah, it's a door. It's basically a doorway. And like I said, the radio stations are all connected. So it's almost like, okay, well, can I connect 97.0 to 100.3? You know,
Yeah.
I connect those two radio stations together. Whatever. You know, it's just it's those two frequencies.
Consciousness. I got rid of this word. Consciousness can be in one dimension at the time, or can it be in plural?
What's
And
that
then
again?
there's can consciousness be in more than one dimension at the time?
Yeah, it can be. Because, for instance, when I'm working through the portals of different dimensions or alternate realities, I'm consciously here and I'm consciously there simultaneously. So yes.
Exactly. Consciousness may be in like a million fractions, a million pieces, like the cells of the body. Mind can be broken. So doesn't consciousness have several layers equals to many locations?
Well, what I've learned is energy doesn't okay. When we look at the physical, we see speed of light and that sort of thing. But outside of the physical, none of those requirements or none of those limitations exist. And energy can be in multiple places simultaneously, because it doesn't have the restrictions. Okay. And we're energy. We're not the physical, but we look at things in the physical because this is where we live. This is where we reside, but that's not how it works. Once you're out of the physical, you could be potentially in 2 trillion places simultaneously. There's no,
Yeah.
if there's no space and there's no time, then there's no limitation. And once you get outside, once you're outside of it and you experience it, then you have a better understanding of how things work. But that doesn't, but when you come back to try to explain how that functions, it's very difficult because you're dealing with an understanding versus a language barrier.
And when you say out, you mean outside of astral also?
Outside of the physical boundaries, outside of the physical. When you're experiencing something in the non-physical, you don't have the boundaries that we experience here. And you don't have the mind chatter. You don't have the responsibilities. You don't have the worries. You don't have the feelings. You don't have the emotions. You have pure understanding and you have the moment.
Those you've been to places which are two-dimensional. Are those also like within the prison yard? Do you think so? Or are they
No,
outside?
I'd say they're outside of it. I mean, you're not going to get information from them other than an experience. And when people say, well, how can it be two-dimensional? Well, if anybody's ever used a photo program like Photoshop and other different ones where you can have layers, like, you know, your background is maybe some trees and a river, and then you want to add some cars in the front of it, maybe some people in front of that. Those are all in a flat image, but they're layered so that you can have different layers within that. So, you know, you can move the cars around in one layer and the people around another layer, but it's all just a flat image. And that's how the two-dimensional worlds are. There are things moving around in there. They obviously can't see, or they probably can't feel or hear, but they have a way of communication. They have a way of movement, and most of the time it's really dark, because if you can't see anything, then what would you need light for? And when you're in a portal situation like that, you can actually generate enough light in order to see what's going on.
I'm looking at my list of questions. I've written here Mandela effects. You must be aware of those.
The what?
How do you, Mandela effects?
Oh, Mandela effects.
Yeah. How do you see them?
there are a lot of things that we look at, and we can look at how things will change. And I tell people, our timeline, say each moment is spaced this far apart, which obviously they aren't, you know. So there's space in between each moment. And in between each moment, they can be manipulated. So if you walk into your front door in your house from coming home from work, and in that moment, before you see what's going on in the house, they could have inserted it in between any moment, they could insert information. What they do is they manipulate the moments in between our timeline, our physical timeline. So they can change things, but yet we still have memories of them. But in their manipulation, they try to convince you that your memories are not as good as the timeline. So that's how I believe things change, because they're able to manipulate between the moments of our timeline. They can do that, but they don't change what we know. They don't change us. They change the events. They change our background. And that's what I believe is going on.
Why do they do that? Is it for the energy production, their food production?
Well,
also?
if you begin to doubt yourself, if you begin to doubt your own mind, then at any time, it's all about control. Now, if they get you to doubt yourself, then you won't trust yourself, and maybe I really didn't experience that, or maybe that wasn't real, or that wasn't true. So if you place doubt into somebody's mind, that's a very powerful tool right there. And that's what it's all about. It's all about doubting yourself, questioning yourself. If you're sure and you're a consciously strong individual, then you are the enemy. They don't want individuals. They want groupthink. They want people who live in the box. Don't think outside the box, because that makes you dangerous. You got to be in the box. Believe what we say. Only listen to us. We know better.
We know better, definitely. This person is saying that he or she is, I'm going to say he for the language sake, he sees sometimes accidents from all over the world as someone who experienced that accident. And most often he understands the feeling that tells about the accidents. And he's been wondering why he has these experiences, because he doesn't consider himself as a clairvoyant or anything like that. Is this also part of this timeline thing?
Well, I'll say this. You will get experiences, but there's not going to be anybody to give you answers. If you really want answers, you have to look for yourself. I mean, I asked around and decades ago, and nothing. And like I said, I came to the conclusion the only way I was going to get answers was to answer them for myself. And that's what you're going to have to do. You know, whether you're going to have to study your experiences, document your experiences, and question everything about your experiences. And you're going to have to get to the bottom of it. Can you recreate them? Can you get to a point where you can recreate them? How do you access them? You're going to have to write down all those questions, and you're going to have to diligently focus and go after one at a time. Go after each one is the only way, because there's not answers. Answers are never handed to you, and if they are, they're not going to be true.
I feel like adding that maybe it's also important to ask what kind of feeling does it create in him to have those
Right.
missions.
Yeah, and it's hard to say feeling, because sometimes people say, well, I don't have an emotion or whatever. It's not about your emotions. It's about okay, so say somebody put you in a car and you're driving the first time. And what is your feeling at that point? I'm not talking about are you excited or whatever, but what kind of feeling are you have while you're in that scenario, while you're in that position, while you're moving around? and that's the kind of way I would say it. What kind of feeling are you having? Like, is there like a vibration? Is there this? Is there that? And what I find is, if you give people the make a list, they'll generally make a list of things, and then they'll start to get into, well, I was thinking this at the time, or my ears were ringing, or my foot was, I felt my foot cramping, or whatever. They'll usually start to add things that come to mind after they start to recall that information. Once you recall that information, then a barrage of different feelings and emotions and different ideas start to come in. And a lot of times, if you get an idea, no matter how foreign it may seem, jump on it and try it, because a lot of times those are the ones that are going to be the most beneficial to you along your path.
Yeah, this sort of gives me a bridge to another thing you quite often have said in your videos, that we should pick one question, because there's so many open questions in this world that we should focus. Like you have chose to focus on what's behind the astral, what's behind the prison yard, how to get out, how to find the solution for this. And this is also like, just pick a subject and study that, because there's always going to be more questions.
The system thrives on you going in 5,000 different directions simultaneously, going down this path, going down this path. Oh, what I get on here? Oh, there's this. If you don't stick with one thing to begin with, you're never going to get. So if you're going after one thing and you're having a hard time, what makes 100 things at the same time any more your ability to be able to get to answer 100 versus one. Go after something and get to that point and figure it out, and then begin another path. Because every time you'll see something, you'll branch off to another thing, and then there's another branch off to another path, and it's endless, because the system wants to keep you just going down different paths endlessly, wasting your time and energy. You'll never get to any answers at that point, and that's the whole purpose of it, just to keep you on that hamster wheel. If you keep on that hamster wheel, then you're just gonna keep buying into the system.
And looking backwards now, because you started decades ago, there was no internet, there was nobody near you with the same questions. You had to find the answers yourself, and that became a strength to you.
Right. Well, what you'll notice is, this is what I noticed. It's only because it was my specific situation, but I would kind of ignore it. I knew it was happening, and there's really nothing I could do about it. I didn't have any answers, and I was younger, and it was whole life ahead of me, and I was immersed within the existence of life, and it's so easy when you're younger, because you've got goals and you've got all these things to do.
Mm.
So I was following those paths, and I kept getting these reminders, like an energy rising. And I would get it every so often. It was like my reminder: you need to get back on the path, get back on the path. And I knew what it was. Sometimes I ignored it. Finally, I just stopped ignoring it and started going back on the path. And then I would start to make the energy, the feeling of that energy. I started to recreate that, because I felt it was beneficial, and it was funny that raising of the energy is what I would feel when I was being hunted or preyed upon by those dark ones in my dreams. So I realized quickly that's how the energy transfer occurs. So it was kind of it allowed me to realize how I could mute that, how I could stop that, if it started, I could put a cap on it. I could stop what they were inducing in me, and I could put an end to it, and then deal with the situation at hand. So that's where you learn things along the way, but you just have to pay attention. Those little subtle things that happen to you, you've got to listen to them and actually take them into consideration and work on it.
And this brings us back to your purpose with your channel and this whole thing and the solution you're offering, because you find the answer that we are their prey, and we sort of like their cattle, their energy, their food source, and they are giving us the nurture and cares so that we bring the food for them, provide the food for them.
Right.
And your solution to this current state of being is to reverse it. Instead of producing the energy in our mitochondrias, and because at the moment we're not using it ourselves, they are sort of like harvesting it. You sort of like started like taking it back, like doing the plumbing, doing the switching, like the other way around, like taking it back.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole premise. Just a simple solution to our problem is, okay, well, if they're taking our energy, why can't we take it back? So I devised several different ways for people to do it. You don't have to have out of body experiences. You don't have to have glimpses. You can start with your visualization or your dream work. However, whatever works for you. Everybody's got their own way that is preferable to them, or would be their best way. So I opened it up and said, hey, there are different ways that you can do this. You don't need to just do it in one way. So I offer different ways, different plans for people, and offer different avenues for them to be able to follow. So I started it well over a year ago, and I got to the point where, yeah, I'm no longer receiving these threats during my dream state and that sort of thing, because I will just turn the tables and I will go after them. I mean, when it comes down to it, I hunt them down. Exactly what I do. And I don't just take back my energy, I take everything. And that's just the way it works. I mean, if you're going to, if you're in the middle of a war, and everybody's shooting at you with guns, well, what are you going to do? You've got to save yourself. And the only way you can do it is you get a bigger gun, and it's not about, all these bodies and stuff. I mean, this is non-physical. Most of the time what happens is there's nothing left. There is just nothing, I mean, and first of all, when you see something you would consider physical and non-physical, it's not really there. It's just a projection. So what you're dealing with these energy projections, and what you're going to do is you pull energy from there. So you're not like ending the life of something. You're taking all the energy back from this. You're the one who actually created this thing. You're taking it back. You're taking your energy back that you created. So that's where we're at. I mean, it's all about we have to do something, because what happens is there's the non-physical, but in the physical, look what we're going through. We're going to continue. It's going to continue to get worse. If we don't put a stop to it, then it's going to continue to get worse. The more, whether or not we react to them, our situation in the physical is going to get worse. I tell everybody, we have to be here every day. We have to survive on this planet. We have to live on this planet every day, and they're going to continue to make it worse. So the only way that we're going to make it better is to shut their system down so that we can get out of this mess. Because if we didn't have all this manipulation and all these lies and deception, imagine how much better this world could be in a very short period of time. And not only that is, at that point, where there's no system holding us in, we wouldn't be here. You don't have to have a physical life. People that want to stay here, they can stay. I would choose to leave. I don't choose to have a physical existence. I don't choose to be trapped any longer. The only way we're going to get out of it is to start at the top and filter it down.
Exactly. I spent some time during the weeks I've known about you and I watched your videos, visualizing that how could I take back the energy? And I came to the silly conclusion that I just use a vacuum cleaner. Imaginary vacuum cleaner, like going around me.
It's not, if you got the idea, it's not silly. I mean, because realistically, when you're in the non-physical, and it seems at first people might think, okay, well, this seems kind of rudimentary or cartoonish because it doesn't really exist. But they don't understand is you're training yourself. You are training yourself in the non-physical. Once you get to a certain point, you're going to be immersed within that situation. It's going to be just as real as it is right here. So once you get into it, once you start to do it, the non-physical is our natural state. Okay. Funny thing is, when you're born, you got to learn how to walk and talk and do all these things in the physical. When you're in the non-physical, who taught you telepathy? Who taught you how to see? Who taught you how to move around? Nobody did, because that's your natural state. This is your unnatural state. So I didn't have to learn to do any of that. It's all completely natural. So we've been fooled, we've been duped, the wool's been, thrown over our eyes for all these years. Now it's time to take it off and realize what's really going on.
Important question. How do we shut down their system?
Well, that's where the solution falls in. Take back their energy. We become the hunters of them. At this point, if there's nothing here for them to take, there's no reason for them to be here. But the system also runs on energy. So without us, there would be no system. So we have to work on the system and work on them simultaneously.
Does it need everybody?
I don't know how many people it takes, but all I would say is the more the better, because I don't know. I don't have a number, but I do know if there was a majority of people taking back their power, there would be a completely different change in our system.
Definitely. Do you think that this life is valuable? Because
I'm sure there's some value in it. You do learn some things, but when it comes to the fact that we lose all of our memories before this is a key role in understanding about how we're being deceived. So yeah, to a certain degree, but I'm saying most people wouldn't need to live it long term. If it was a paradise, it was actually a great place, then yeah, it would be all right, but it's not, and we're being controlled. So that way it's just it's kind of it's a mess. It really is a mess right now. For what we see, we know what's right, and what's going on around us isn't right. So if it was, then it would be okay. But even then, this is not our natural state. Once you leave and you experience that, you're like, this is way more than this. This is nothing. Really, I'm not impressed with what I see here. When I go out there, I feel at home. I feel normal. I feel just like it's supposed to be.
Can you describe how does it feel when you connect to your consciousness in your physical body?
Well, like I said before, in the physical body, I'm always here. I'm never away from my physical body. But when you're in the non-physical, when you're truly in the non-physical, you don't have, here on Earth, we have baggage. We need water, we need food, we need air, we need heat, we need cooling, we need all these different things that, makes us needy. We're dependents, but we're generally, our conscious energy we don't depend on anything. We don't need anything. We don't need to be needy. We're independent energy, but we're put here to be dependents, and that's not normal. So for me, I just don't accept it, because when I'm away, I realize at that point I'm independent until I come back.
Because I'm so personally interested in so many things, because I feel that there's a spot in me around my kidneys in my physical body, which could be what you call conscious, the conscious part of me, the is me. Because if I put it into physical language terms, it would be like a shared wide smile on a perfect moment. It is something that requires nothing, and I can sort of like connect to it even though I'm right here. Just focus.
Yeah, I don't haven't have an answer for that. I mean, there's a lot of feelings and stuff that we get, and I always say the feelings and emotion thing we got to really watch and try to keep control of. There are things, times when you feel certain things maybe or something, but I try not to rely too much on my feelings, because I know feelings and emotions are physical traits, and they can manipulate you in many levels. And that's why people are so set upon hope and faith, which are two very dangerous tools.
Mm. And we need a body, we need a physical body to feel emotions. It's just the feelings only happen in
it's kind of you're like triggers and thoughts and that sort of thing. Like I said, when you're out of the physical, you don't have all these random things going on. You don't have these worries and all this type of stuff. It's foreign to say, and it's foreign for most people, but unless you've experienced it, you just don't have an understanding of the situation or the experience. That's why I tell people you need to experience things, you need to question things. That's the only way you're going to get to the point of understanding.
One more thing about the dreams. When I started studying and learning lucid dreaming, and that there was a lot of people saying that I need to see my hands, I need to move my hands, I need to do something in the dream, and especially seeing the hands would be something very particular, and it took me way too long to be able to see my hands. But eventually I did. But you said, I had to write it down. You said that ability to think is more powerful during a dream than your ability to move. And that sort of hit me. That hit me hard, because that's just true. Because I was yet again inside a box here, like I have to do this in a dream, I have to do this, like somebody would know what is the correct way of breaking the bad dreams or whatever. Because my ability to think, of course, because that's the consciousness.
And your ability to think, even if during the dream you're muted in your vision and your hearing or your speech or whatever, you always have the ability to think. And when I utilized the gateway in the dream, I didn't do the hands or anything. I just thought to myself, I want to have an out-of-body experience. That took me out of the dream. When I want to control the dream, I don't use hands or anything of that nature. Once I become lucid, I control it. I control the whole thing. I can either allow it to break down now that I'm lucid, or that I could keep it going to a certain degree. But your thought is what remains constant within that. Your understanding, your thought, that's the most important. You don't need to hold hands. I mean, holding hands up was one thing for, I know, utilizing different techniques, but your thought is more power than anything else, because you can move around in a dream, you're not really going to affect it that much, but your thought, your conscious thought, your lucidity is where the power lies. And once you're able to intentionally do things, then you can break a dream down to minute pieces.
Exactly. It's so simple, and it's so true, because if I am able to think, then I know where I am.
Right. Yep.
And if
you can control the situation. Once you're out of that drug-like state, once you've stepped out of that illusional drug-like state, and you're focused and you're conscious and you're lucid, then that's where the power starts. And they don't want you to be. That's why you're put into an illusionary drug-like state, because if you were conscious, you could control the situation. And it's the same thing when you're in the physical. If you're lucid within your life and you're consciously aware, then you're in control. But if you follow along, if you're in like a boat in the middle of the ocean, just following the tide around, and you have no path, you'll never go anywhere. You just keep going in a circle. But if you've got intention and you're lucid, then you're moving that boat in the direction that you want to go.
Exactly. There's a nice comment on this one. This person has, when he's been a teenager, he has practiced falling on top of a bed because he had noticed that his what is this? It says body disconnects from the body. It must be the soul disconnects from the body, but he doesn't know whether to recommend it anymore. But that's sort of like, it does the thing. It did the thing to him, but there was no control. So, or how do you see it? If
Well,
it just...
there's one thing is it's called snapback. If for some reason you're in an out of body experience or whatever, and you return quickly, it's called a snapback, and I don't know, it could give you a sore neck, and it feels like you're like the two bodies are coming together. They're reconnecting, and that could be what he's talking about. I don't know. That's the only thing that I can think of is a snapback, but and you're just basically your body's laying here, and then your spirit body comes back and takes the same position, and if it's done in a really quick sense, like panic or something, you could have a snapback. I've had it happen a couple of times. It gives you headaches and you get pain in the neck too.
Why do we have brains?
Well, I'm sure your brain is a functionality, the nervous system in your body, and it has a lot of functions. Whether or not our real beliefs and everything are stored in there, I'm not sure. I don't know that much about the physical part, but I do know all your nerves and muscles and everything are connected to it. So I'm sure there's a purpose. Obviously, there's a purpose for it. So
I've learned that there is a water plant that is born with brains, and it sort of swims around, finds a spot where it will spend the rest of his life. And the first thing the plant does when he finds that spot, is to eat its own brain. And that has made the biologists think that we only have the brain so we could move our physical body. They have no other function but to move the muscles.
Well, yeah, and also I think that maybe the nerves for your feeling in your fingers and muscles
Maybe.
and that sort of thing. I think it was probably I'm sure there's a couple things. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that much about the physical system. I haven't really put that much time into it. But I mean, there's so much in the non-physical that I've spent a lot of time in, because it's never ending. If you learn one thing, there's 10,000 other things that you realize that you don't know. So for every time you figure something out or learn something, there's just a door opens, and there's so much more that you just don't know. So the more you know, the more you don't know.
So let's get back to the basic thing. In your point of view, we are conscious energy beings trapped in a 3-body system: the physical body, the spirit body. There was some sort of confirmation from the dog. For those,
Sorry, there was no.
Yeah, for those viewers who didn't maybe catch the beginning, or maybe need a rehearsal on this. So this is how you see us, as energy beings trapped here in a soul system with 3 bodies.
Yes, it's the 3-body system with the subconscious overseeing that, which is also probably the manager of the system. I mean, like I said, it's a system of technology that's far beyond what we could understand. A system of technology and level of control. I mean, when you have non-physical or part non-physical and part physical beings, probably light years ahead of us, and at least in the physical part of it. Now, if we were in our normal situation of non-physical energy, then we would be on a better stand so that we could understand. But we're dumbed down and put in this situation. So this is where we're at.
And we would like to break free, please. Well, here's one more. When a person is brain dead and not moving, what does she feel and where is she?
I don't have the answer for that. I mean, they could be in the non-physical or they could still be in the body. It's really hard to say. There's so many different states between waking and sleeping and that sort of thing. There's a lot of different states of consciousness. So it's really hard to tell where anybody is at a certain time. So there's no way I could answer that.
Yeah, and it probably has a lot to do with the religion.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say. It's really, I mean, you don't know what state they're in. You don't know what state their physical body's in. You don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's a million different options, and I just couldn't answer them all.
Obviously, because you have a clear focus.
Yeah.
As should we all. As should we all. Is there anything that you would like to add? We've been talking about an hour and 37 minutes. A lot of good stuff, a lot of things that I really, really wanted to ask you. Is there something that I have left out with my questions? Something that we should...
I think the most important part for any of this, it's about your individuality. It's about you taking charge of your life, getting in charge of your feelings, your thoughts, and your emotions. That's your job. Don't let your subconscious be your driver when you are the driver. You could be on a 100-mile trip in your car and maybe only remember 3 or 4 miles because you daydreamed the whole time. You're giving away all the nighttime, dream time, the sleep time away in your life. Why give away more? Be in control, be lucid in your life, be alive and lucid within every moment, and take control and stand up for yourself, your family, and in your country. When these things happen, you have to stand up. But the best way to stand up is to follow the solution, because you're going to be making a difference based upon where everything lies. Everything filters down from the astral, from what we call the astral, from the non-physical. These beings manipulate people that are the leaders of countries and corporations so that they will filter down their agenda in order for us to live, to produce for them. That's our job. So they want maximum production, and they want maximum amount and minimum amount of backlash. But if we don't fight back on some level, then we're going to just keep going along this line. Try to think we can change things through politics and that sort of thing. That's okay, but it's never going to work. You can't beat them at their own game. You have to reverse the roles of predator and prey in order to beat them and beat their game, because they have the game. They are light years ahead of us. They are master manipulators, and you'll never beat them at this game. You have to reverse the roles and beat their game, their actual game. I call the game of life. We're all involved in it. We've got our own goals, empty things that we've been following our whole life. We finally get to, older in our life, and we realize, yeah, all that stuff I did most of it was meaningless. Most of the work and the things that I put into it. Of course, the family and everything that's a different story. But what I'm saying is all the things that we thought we needed and we strived for and worked for, it was just empty goals. And that's what most of them are. So we have to prioritize our understanding of what's going on and figure out our foundational beliefs and get rid of what's not correct, what doesn't work for us. Because we've been told for so long that this is what it is, and this is what we need to do, when none of the people that have told us that follow that. The rules were made for the normal people, for the majority. The rules are for the majority, not those above it. The ones who make the rules don't follow them. Where the majority of the people are playing in a football team of seasoned professionals, and we're told the rules ahead of time. We're playing the game. They're not following the rules, but we are. And we keep following the rules even though they don't. That's where we're at. We keep falling for the same tricks, the same lies. We're always following the path that we think we're supposed to follow, and it never works. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and not getting different results or expecting different results. That's what we are. That's where we are. We keep believing. We keep hoping. We have faith that somebody else is going to do it for us. We're looking towards a savior to save us. If you want to find a savior, look in the mirror. That's the only place you're going to see one, because nobody is going to stand up for you but yourself. Don't wait for the aliens. Don't wait for Jesus. Don't wait for anybody else, because it's up to you. Nobody's going to save you but yourself.
Very wise words. What I take as a golden nugget of what you said was, we already give the nighttime. Why give the daytime?
Right.
Why should I worry so much about the nighttime when I still have energy to take back during daytime? Because it's way easier when I'm awake.
Right.
In this
Doing it at
realm.
night is hard because you fall asleep and you just lose it. But if you're in the daytime, you can do it. And it's so much easier. So I say the glimpse state or just the visualization in the daytime is your best time, because even if you did fall asleep, you wake right up and you can start all over again, you know? And that's the thing. You have so much more opportunity. You don't have all of the mechanics, you know, to deal with like you do at night. Do it during the day. So much better. Such a better format.
You get. This is true. Thank you. Yeah. Message received. Exactly. I am very, very content. I'm very happy that you spent these almost 2 hours with us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And yeah, I'm just full of gratitude. Thank you.
Well, I'm very thankful. I like to speak to people that want to have a good conversation, that are open-minded, and the only way that we're ever going to get this place or ourselves are going to get better is for us to train ourselves. And that's the real foundation of the solutions, about you training yourself to realize there's more out there, for you training yourself into visualization, because that's how we exist, is energy. We exist through understanding, knowledge, using our lucidity, like in the dreams. Our dreams, we can take over because we're in a non-physical state and we become aware. And when you're aware, you're the most powerful. And for you to understand your own potential, the only way to do it is to actually put forth the effort to do it. And you have to have a reason and a drive to do that. And if you don't have that, then you need to create that, because it's all about lighting a fire under yourself so that you can get up and start on the path, or go farther on the path, or keep going.
Exactly. It's not only that I know that we are trapped here. It's just there are ways to free us, to work.
Right. Knowing it is one thing, but doing it is another.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of people, you know, they switch channels and they watch all these different stories. Yeah, but that they're not doing anything about it. If you're not putting forth the effort yourself, then you're not doing anything. You have to do it yourself. Nobody can do it for you. And listening to videos is not going to do it for you either. You can have all the information in the world, unless you apply it, it's not going to do anything.
Exactly. One has to act. Focus, decide that this is important. This is what I work on. My goal is do everything I can to prevent reincarnation here. This is a hellhole. This is not a good place.
Prioritize your, what is important to you. What's really important, not just the new car or the house or the paint and whatever else. You have to prioritize what's real. Do you want to keep doing this? Do you want to keep coming back? And every time you come back, the potential for things to be worse and worse is going to be much higher. So do you really want to put yourself into that position to where you're going to have to potentially put yourself in a really bad position? So at this point, I say, like when people, even the hackers say the best place to hack a system is from within. Well, we're within there. So let's do it.
Let's do it. We are all here. We are definitely in here. So.
Right. We're definitely in the middle of it.
Yeah. It's not that we look at the video or anything. This is the game. And we are being played.
Sure is. Yep.
Okay, we are getting thank yous, gratefuls. What is there? Some animals here, and there it is. Energy does not disappear; it just changes form. Yeah, and we are energy, so
yeah, we don't go anywhere. We don't ever die. We just get recycled.
And the question is whether we get recycled here to this physical form or not.
Right.
Let's do it, Mike. That's it. Okay. Thank you, everyone who was with us tonight. I know this is difficult because of the language barrier, but it's still here, and I'll be working with the translations later on. And please share, like, comment, the thrill, do all that, and let us know what you think. And Mike is very grateful also for all the comments, and you also promised to answer them all, and people can send you emails and all that. So you are really there. You are really here for us.
Yeah, I mean, if people have questions, I've got the email. I've got different ways to contact me through my channel. However, and if I can get on the comments here, and if the translation works, I'll answer the questions on this video as well. So I mean, there's many ways to get a hold of me, and I try to answer every single one. I'm not the type of person to let things go. I follow through with everything.
Definitely. It only took you a few moments to answer back my email about when I asked you into the show. So I know you're there. Thank you so much. Maybe at some other occasion we speak again, but this was absolutely a pleasure to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the viewers and all the feedback and all the questions, because without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So.
Let's break free from this system.
I agree.
Okay, bye for now.